Greetings, programs. This is Wretch. Welcome back to Rebel Galaxy. Now, you may notice that you don't hear any music or any sounds coming through the video other than my voice, and that is because I was doing some other recording last night, just taking care of some stuff, and I had checked off on my video recorder the ability to record system sounds, and I had forgotten to check that when I recorded my Rebel Galaxy video this morning. So there is no audio here whatsoever, and I was just going to go ahead and just go, well, crap, I guess I'll just record another one. But the thing about it is, some really interesting stuff happened in this video, so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of talk about it, and we'll just see what happens. Now, the episode started with a distress beacon being detected. Off camera, I played a little bit and had acquired some new turrets. I think at this point I had 3 Mark V laser turrets, and we get exposed to a new weapon type that maybe I'd been exposed to before, but I was too busy dying to pay attention to it, and that is torpedoes. Slow moving that could take out deflectors in one shot and probably cause a lot of damage to the ship too. This is the first, there's the torpedo. 2 torpedoes actually, moving very, very slow. Fortunately, the flak is taking care of them. And this is the first time that we have fought a Red Devil Savage Horizon, to my knowledge. So the Red Devil ships just keep on getting nastier and nastier with more firepower. And definitely a bit of a challenge. Now, in terms of all the plot stuff that happened, I kind of decided after taking on this ship, as you can see there on the screen, it has the 2 red private bars there in the middle, indicating its difficulty level. Once we were able to take this thing on, I figured it was a good time to head to the Dreadnought and see if round 3 would be any better than the previous 2 rounds where we just did not have the firepower, even with our wingman and Kofax there, to do anything. Now, the cool thing about destroying those Savage Horizon ships is they dropped a ton of loot. I got multiple diamonds this episode too, if memory serves. By the way, today is May 4th. It's Star Wars Day. Hope you guys are having a great time of it. I think I'm probably going to watch Force Awakens and do some other stuff today. One of the things I was thinking about doing actually yesterday, I thought about making Rebel Galaxy instead of a daily series and every other day series like most of my series on the channel, and starting a new Star Wars series, but I didn't know what exactly to play. Shadows of the Empire had just been released on goodoldgames.com, and I'd actually never played Shadows of the Empire on PC. I'd played it on 64. I played the crap out of it on 64, but the one on PC has a lot of differences, including like animated cutscenes and full voice and things of that nature. So I thought about doing that, and then my mind kind of went off into other kinds of Star Wars games that I could play. One of them was, I thought, okay, here's the Dreadnought. Kofax is still fighting the Dreadnought after days and days and days. It has been a battle for the ages. But we're hoping that our Mark V lasers are going to be able to actually make the difference. And you can see the health has not gone down at all. They've just been sitting there at stalemate. Now, one of the good things, I also upgraded all of my defenses to Mark V. So as you can see, I'm taking those laser salvos with not a whole lot of damage or drain on the deflectors themselves. And the lasers are starting to cut through the shields and into the hull. I thought about doing some, after Shadows of the Empire, I thought about possibly doing Star Wars Republic Commando. Now, Republic Commando was a really fun game that came out on the 360, and I think it's kind of criminally underrated. See, check that out. The Wadget's Eye is like threading the needle. We found the sweet spot that we wouldn't be taking a whole lot of damage and could just have most of our lasers to bear. And as you can see, the health is starting to go down slowly but surely. So we're going to get this huge monkey off of our backs, which is interesting considering it's a Scarab-class frigate, and we're literally like a bug, just hanging out to the side, biting where we can. Republic Commando was a really fun game. I don't think it was as successful as LucasArts hoped it was, or it could be. And I think that's why the sequel, Imperial Commando, was scrapped, which is a shame. And there it goes. After this little salvo. Finally. And then Koufax acts like, oh yeah, we just fought this thing. It's been a quick battle. She's tough. The Dreadnought dropped diamonds, which was a nice kind of consolation prize for how long we'd been having to fight that thing. And that was the catalyst for me that I was like, all right, because both the Dreadnought quest and our quest in the Persephone system were orange. And if you guys remember what I was saying about quests in Warcraft, or if they were orange, I'd go ahead and go to them. I figured it was a good time to go ahead and head to Persephone and see if we could handle anything there. The stuff about Imperial Commando, though, I always find the most interesting Star Wars games are the ones that kind of see what life is like on the other side of the fence. A prime example of that would be games where you can choose dark side, such as the Knights of the Old Republic games. Bounty Hunter, which I've also done on the channel, which was a kind of a cool look into the underworld. Star Wars: The Old Republic MMO, which I also considered. I considered for the series, or for a new series, either starting a brand new character, because they've made some significant changes to the game with the Knights of the Fallen Empire expansion. I thought about doing a brand new character, maybe from the Republic side, so we didn't have to see the same stuff, or doing a season 2 of the Bounty Hunter playthrough and revisiting Beaudry again. I thought about that, but I think ever since TIE Fighter, which I think was the very first Star Wars game where you got to play as one of the bad guys, it's just a more intriguing story, because unless you're able to get really into the meat and have a really personal conflict, a lot of the Star Wars games where you're playing these kind of faceless good guy characters, they're not that entertaining, at least in a story base. But doing this thing where you're playing as a bad guy and dealing with the trials and tribulations and the what's the best word? The betrayal and the intrigue. That's always interesting, because being exposed to that in TIE Fighter and dealing with the Secret Order of the Emperor as well as the regular Imperial war machine, which is something I really appreciated about the Old Republic. The Sith and the Empire didn't always get along. I really dug that, and having to deal with rogue admirals and weapon tests and the rebellion itself. It was an interesting experience to be exposed to that for the first time as a gamer. And after that, I loved games where you got to play as the bad guy, because those were always very interesting stories. So I think at this point, we are heading to a base to repair and sell off some of our cargo that we've gathered through the Dreadnought Assault and all of these distress calls. We've gotten a ton of distress calls in this episode. But after we take care of these, I think that this base pays out probably the biggest, because they're having some sort of celebration at the station, so everything is expensive, which I guess makes sense. Whenever you go to a con, in my experience, whenever you go to an out-of-town con or some sort of big event, the prices are always marked up for tourists. And, that's annoying, but that's just the nature of the beast. So with this celebration, everything's marked up, and we had a cargo hold full of stuff that we could sell at inflated prices. So definitely more money in the coffers is good. Yeah, it's just the thing about it is, I thought about alternating the Rebel Galaxy with a Star Wars series, just because this game is very grindy. Now, it's grindy in a fun way, especially if you like the Wing Commander games and things of that. A huge celebration is what it's called. But I kind of wanted to play a lot of the grinding off camera and get into the story here in the main series. Now, unfortunately, just what you saw there in the bar, we haven't found the beefed up version of Sparrow yet. Steve passed the look at all those prices. It's like 34,000 or 32,000 for the diamond that we grabbed from the Dreadnought. Made some good profit there. But Steve passed his audition with flying colors. Steve is a very good wingman, but as I said before, there's just something about an Irish lady, killing things on your wing that I think that my character here would find a little bit more appealing than a very polite droid. Which is interesting because we've had the old grizzled smuggler kind of mercenary in Garrus. We've had the woman who doesn't take any crap in Sparrow. We've had Chewie with Grood, and now we have Steve, which is essentially a mercenary version of C-3PO. So I'm liking a lot of those comparisons. Skiza doesn't really fit into any of the Star Wars vibes, though. Now, this is where we start making the jump to Persephone. Now, Persephone is... every time I think of Persephone, all I think about is Firefly. Because the Persephone system is where I believe the planet where they found Simon and River in the very first pilot episode. It's also where Badger is based, who is an amazing character. That's actually one of the things that makes me upset that Firefly got canceled. I mean, a lot of things make me upset that Firefly got canceled when it did. But just seeing the development of some of the background characters, such as Badger, or if we'd ever see the return of Patience, see if she could get her comeuppance for what happened during the pilot. But I guess we will never know, except in like comic books and fanfics and things of that nature. Speaking of comic books, I posted on my Facebook and my Twitter this awesome fan art. I don't know who, I forgot his name off the top of my head. It's Japanese, I think. But this guy did an amazing tribute to the Star Wars Expanded Universe and to Dark Horse Comics. It's this huge spread of all the main characters and different ships and whatnot from the Dark Horse Comics. So check that out if you get a chance. I think I have the Twitter and the Facebook linked in the description. Like, check it out. It is an amazing piece of artwork. Now, here's our first real exposure to the Persephone system, and it is a very mixed bag. Now, this first ship, a Greel Galaxian, this is one of the Greel heavy ships, and I actually killed one of those off camera. And this distress signal, it seems that these merchants were stuck in a fight between two enemy fleets because the Greels aren't the only ones here. And we find that out in very, very soon, because we have this prolonged fight that we really didn't need to have, but I wanted to test what our weapons could do. It was a fight between the Greels and the Quarians. But I used to love the Star Wars Dark Horse comics. I read a lot of their graphic novels. I used to buy the comics. I never really bought Marvel comics or DC comics like singularly. I'd always get graphic novels, but when it came to Dark Horse, I was always excited, especially when they would do like Dark Empire or some like really epic storyline regarding the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I was all over that. Like Crimson Empire was awesome. They did a comic book interpretation of the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. It was just cool seeing characters that you hadn't seen before portrayed in comic book form, such as Thrawn and Rook and Palon and all those guys. Mara Jade and Talon Card. Now we got some more diamonds from this Galaxian. Now, I'm thinking at this point that we're in good shape, that the lasers we're going to be able to hold our own. But that big ship there in the background, unfortunately, is going to let us know that our teeth are not really sharp enough to do some heavy-duty work here in the sector. And this is not our only big fight in this episode. We have a very, very significant battle here coming up. It's really bizarre doing commentary on a video I already did commentary on. This is actually the first time this has ever happened. But I had to turn off the system sounds when I was recording. I guess I can tell you guys what I was recording. For those of you who don't know, and I think I talked about it during my Minecraft series and things of that nature, my mother passed away from cancer in 2013. And it was a pretty bad situation. I'll probably talk about it in depth someday, but probably not appropriate at this juncture. But one thing that's always been very close to my heart is I've kept a phone message that she left on my voicemail on my phone. Probably one of the primary reasons I haven't changed my phone either. It was she was in Pompano Beach, Florida, and she was having a really, really good time. She knew that the end was eventually going to come. She had refused. She stopped chemo and her medications because it was killing her faster than the cancer was. So she just decided that she was going to go live her life. So she went on tons of trips to Florida, and I think she wanted to go to Paris, but it just didn't happen. She went on a cruise. Anywhere that she wanted to go, she just went, and I was really happy. She went with one of her best friends, and I have this message when she's calling me from Pompano, and she's happy. Her voice sounds happy. She's enjoying herself, and it's a really pleasant memory to have of her, especially because of how horrible the circumstances of her death were. But I found out that Verizon, they're doing a new voicemail system that actually wipes out any of your saved voicemails. So I was just like, yeah, I was not pleased with that. So I was like, well, I guess one of the things that I could do, I mean, I've got all this recording stuff here. So I actually recorded, I just put the phone on speaker and put it near my microphone here, and it came out great. I recorded it, made a video to put private on YouTube, so I always have it there for if I need it. Saved it here on my computer on a flash drive, so even if my phone's destroyed or it's wiped out, I'll always have that memory. So it did ruin this video, but very, very, very much worth it. So as you can see here, this Quarian Annihilator, I thought we had fought an Annihilator before. We might have with militia assistance, but right now with a merchant vessel and Steve and the Wadget's Eye, we are just not cutting through any of it whatsoever. And it's continually firing torpedoes at us, which I'm having to turn the ship and fire flak off to make it go boom, because it will do a lot of damage to us if our deflectors aren't all the way up to full. And this is where we get our first taste of the kind of ships that we can experience here in these extreme sectors. Now, one of the cool things about this series is when I was looking at the sector map, there's a system called Charon. And I was kind of curious because there's no warp points to it, and I was wondering how that was going to be involved into the main story of the game, and fortunately, we find out during this. Now, I keep on coming back here because it doesn't look like Steve is actually offering any kind of firepower other than just distracting the ship. So I think this is the first bug out. And we notice that the ship had actually destroyed one of the merchants, so we grab all the cargo involved. No sense for it to just be floating there in space for them to grab. There we go. And we see another torpedo heading toward us. So that ship has a very, very long range with the torpedo launchers. Now, I'm pretty sure that those are torpedoes. Or, I'm relatively sure of that. And here's where I thought that Steve had actually been distracted by that fighter. And we go back to the Annihilator to try and take it on with Steve's full attention. And I think the merchant tries to help too, but we're just not cutting through there. I don't think until we get a lot of Mark V turrets or even Mark VI, which are incredibly pricey, in the millions range, that we'll be able to do anything. By the way, stuff that we've seen in this series about going to quest hubs and having random stuff, some of the game's random chance in terms of encounters showing up at the same time as a main storyline quest, that happens here later in the episode. Now, in this system, considering what we're seeing here from the Annihilator, I did initially panic and figure, oh, we are so dead, but we handle ourselves pretty well. This right here is the only kind of hurt pride moment that we have in Persephone. I'm sure there's a lot more to come. But looking at the system map is relatively small compared to the one that we've been at for the last few episodes. So it's more of a quality than quantity kind of thing. And I think right here is where we decide, no, it's just not going to happen. Because honestly, that trader, when we jumped in and started fighting that big dreadnought, that the trader should have known that it was time to get out of Dodge. So here we are. We're at the main quest line, and Trell's letting us know that we're approaching the site of the spatial anomaly, and we see these weird ships that we haven't seen before, and this character named Captain Stafford, who is saying that the base is under attack and needs help. And this is where we first get exposed to, what are they called? The Varixian, I think they're called, but are Variax. But not only do we have to deal with these strange new ships, we also had a distress call with some traders, and we have Red Devil cruisers and fighters all over the place. So what I thought was like a holy crap situation, I don't even realize that some of the ships are Red Devil until we take out a few of these Variax ships. And see, there they are. And they look really familiar, and I can't put my finger on what they look like. They look like I've seen aliens that look just like that before, but I can't remember it at the moment. But as you can see, this turns into a pretty epic little firefight around a base. It kind of reminds me of the Battle of Endor, which I have seen again recently. And it is Star Wars Day, so now would be a good time for you guys to watch it too. That space battle, the Battle of Endor, still holds up in terms of special effects and just how it looks. Lando with the Falcon heading into the Death Star 2 along with Wedge, just all the Mon Calamari ships and the Star Destroyers, fighting it out. The death of the Executor. It's such an epic fight, even by today's standards. I know a lot of people give some flack to Return of the Jedi because of the Jawas, and a lot of people see it as the lesser of the original trilogy. But Ewoks aside, I don't really mind the Ewoks that much. Don't get me wrong, I really wish that they had gone with their original idea of having Endor be the homeworld of the Wookiees, or a Wookiee colony, or just have enslaved Wookiees there. But it's still, that movie, if you take the Ewoks completely out of the equation, you've got the Emperor, you've got Jabba the Hutt and all the stuff that happened there, the sail barge battle, and the Rancor, and then you have the Battle of Endor. It's so good. Like, and it's a personal preference. I actually like Return of the Jedi in terms of how I rank Star Wars movies. Here's how I rank them, because I don't actually think I talked about this in any of my Star Wars series. I rank the movies like this, and this is slightly controversial to some, but I rank them. Empire Strikes Back, obviously, is the best one. I think that Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens are equal, because there's good and bad to both. And then below that, and here's where the sacrilegious nature comes in, is the original Star Wars. I like the original Star Wars, but I think it can be a bit slow at times. Still an amazing movie, though, but it's actually my least favorite of the original trilogy, because I've watched it so many times, I've just, And then in terms of the prequel trilogy, I actually go 3, 1, 2. I really... Revenge of the Sith is the best out of the lot. If you take Jar Jar out of the equation, Episode 1, I don't think is that bad. And Episode 2, despite the fact that it has Yoda sword fighting and Jango Fett and the fight in the asteroid field with the charges that went BWAM, and Christopher Lee, who I really like the Count Dooku character, especially if you watch Clone Wars or anything like that. I just really think that Hayden Christensen and the blossoming romance storyline was just torture to sit through. So just gotta kind of take the good with the bad there. Now, we just took out the Variax, and we're about to get an incoming message from the captain. Now, one of the things here that we find out is these Variax apparently come from the Charon system, because they're talking about the system that the Variax come from. They don't, there's no jump points there, but their ships have been sighted, like a random fighter or a corvette just popping up out of nowhere and harassing settlers. Kind of reminds me of Big Trouble in Little China. It always starts that way, very small. But What I think happened is they can actually open their own jump points, which, if you know Babylon 5, that was actually a pretty significant thing with when capital ships were able to create their own jump points in space. I think the Vorlons could do it, the Minbari could do it, the Shadows can do it, and then later the White Star fleet could. Everyone else you had to go to jump gates themselves. But I think that the Variax are probably the big baddies in this game. And I'm also kind of curious about that one guy that we met in like episodes and episodes ago who had a name and he looked like he was wearing like a hood and a mask, kind of the Darth Vader vibe. And he died and didn't seem all that concerned about it. So I'm probably sure he's going to come back as well. But he's basically just kind of letting us know what we're dealing with, and they maybe, this weird spatial anomaly maybe came from them. And there's tons of cargo around here that we can grab. And I think that's what, yeah, I'm running around grabbing the spoils of battle. I'm trying to be very careful not to pick up any contraband because I don't know how full my my smuggler's hold is, and I don't want to get pulled over. But we got quite a bit of money from these runs and all the cargo that we've gathered. And I do believe by the end of it, we have enough to grab one more turret, putting our Mark V turret count to 4. And I think this is Trell messaging us. And this is about another fragment, but is moving. We don't know whether it's on a ship, or maybe a comet traveling, or a fast-moving meteorite, as Trell's just saying. Knowing us, though, we probably aren't going to get that kind of luck of it being a meteorite or something. It's probably going to be a very big warship that's going to eat our lunch, as our luck is wont to travel. But now that we know our mission, I believe I'm trying to wrap the episode up, because the risk is very high. We found one more cargo container out here, and we start heading toward the ship, or heading toward the starbase to repair. I think we have a little bit of damage, and everything else, but I think that there's some gold on the other side of the station, and then I hook a U to try and pick it up. Every little bit counts, right? Let's see if I remember that. Yep, I had noticed it. But really epic space battle, and the Wadget's Eye held its own, too, which I am very appreciative. As long as we have a few ships distracted with other things, such as our wingmen, we can do some significant damage, especially to fighters. So let's see here. No, we had no repairs, fortunately. Other than the designer clothes, everything else was marked down quite substantially, so we made sure that... Oh, I did pick up some bio-waste. I just noticed that. We decided not to sell anything yet. We're going to go find a base that actually maybe is having a celebration again, so we can go sell all of our stuff. And then we upgrade... Look at that, 3,726,000 credits for a Mark VI mining laser. Now, hopefully a lot of the jobs here in these later systems pay really big money, because we're going to need every single credit. But that... Let's see here. I also think that we need to get a new subsystems. Probably, I know there is one subsystem that lowers the rate of coolness for your turrets. Your turrets don't heat up as fast. And I'm looking forward to grabbing that. And I don't know what else to get either. And there's the more souped up version of Garrus sitting there in the bar. One of these days we will find Sparrow. And I think this is where we call it a day. Now, I do apologize for there being no game audio here, guys, but I hope that you appreciate me doing the commentary over here so you didn't miss anything. But I'll end it here. If you liked it, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, that'd be a big help, and we'll see you next time. Later days, everyone.